What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Tim Sports Talk. And today we are going to talk about Dan Quinn. All right, I know I'm late, but I want to give my thoughts, especially now that I've had time to digest it and think about it more and listen to some press conferences and I think I have a different perspective than I initially did. And you let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Just pause that video and you guys tell me right now, how do you feel about Dan Quinn? Did you change your mind also? Do you still feel like, no, we settled or blah, blah, blah? How do you feel about Dan Quinn? Were you excited the whole time? Is it somebody that you really, really wanted? Let me know. But my initial thoughts on this was clearly, we struck out on Ben Johnson. We missed out on that train, and they just scrambled to get somebody else, right? And they went with Dan Quinn. Retread coach. I did not want a retread. I wanted somebody brand spanking new, young head coach, offensive-minded coach. So we went with the exact opposite of what I was looking for. I wanted somebody, because I knew we were going to draft a quarterback, and I wanted somebody to grow with the quarterback, and, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and go the next 10, 15, 20 years somehow with a number 2 overall pick quarterback with a new head coach and kind of take off there. So that's what I wanted. We obviously went with the exact opposite. I know some people were saying it's Ron Rivera 2.0, right? Defensive-minded head coach, retread, went to the Super Bowl and lost. Only 2 winning seasons. Ron Rivera at least had 3, but he had almost twice as many seasons. It was definitely not the most exciting pick. The one thing that I said positive right off the rip is, hey, at least Dallas won't have it anymore, because I think he's a fantastic, or there's no thinking about it, he is a fantastic defensive coordinator, right? He had the Legion of Boom, and now Dallas's defense over the last couple of years has been phenomenal. He did get worked, though, against the Packers. You have, obviously, the 28-3 game in Atlanta. That sucks. But hey, they got to the Super Bowl, right? And his record is pretty mid. He's like, I think 1 win over 500 when I was looking at it. He's 43-42 as a head coach. He went 8-8, 11-5, 10-6, then 2 7-9s back to back, and finished 0-5 before being fired in 2020. Obviously, hey, it's great to see 11-5. We haven't had 11 wins in my lifetime. So 11 wins would be phenomenal if we can even get one of those, right? Unfortunately, our bar's pretty low as Washington fans. But it sucks to see how he finished, right? So he started 8-8, then it's like, he built something, 11-5, 10-6. But then they reverted and then went for 2 below 500 seasons. And what's odd enough is that it wasn't the offense that's the problem. It was the defense. The defense, he had, its highest ranked was 9, which is solid, but the rest was middle of the pack to the worst as far as yards per game and points per game. Not last, but, towards the bottom. And his defenses in Atlanta were not that great. It was really the offensive side of the ball that led that. You think about the MVP season with Matt Ryan, and he had 2 really, really good coordinators. And that's something I was excited about. Yes, he's a defensive-minded head coach, but he knows how to hire an offensive coordinator, right? He hired Kyle Shanahan, which many see him as one of the best offensive minds in football, right? If not the best, right? Andy Reid is up there, obviously, and maybe a couple others, but he is up there amongst the upper echelon. His tree is insane, right? Then you have Steve Sarkisian, who's also got Texas in the college football playoffs. Phenomenal, and his offenses actually were ranked higher. I don't know if they were technically better if you look at the yards per game or points per game, but as far as where the league was at, they actually went up after Shanahan left and went with Sarkisian. So really good offensive minds, and those offenses were top 10 pretty much throughout the stint there in Atlanta. I really liked the offensive coordinators. Something that changed for me, though, was the opening press conference, okay? He sold me. He He is a great interview, and I can see why Peters was interested in him after the interview process. And he did a good job, at least potentially convincing me that this was their number 1 guy the entire time. The passion was there, clearly. He's got a great track record, but he also you could tell that he's reflected on his time from other places throughout the Seattle, then Atlanta, then here, and even before then. He's a guy that he understands football, he knows football, and he's passionate about football. He's willing to put guys in places that aren't their label, right? He will move guys around and make sure that they are in their best possible spot. And he's local. That was kind of cool. Not that that really matters in the scheme of things, but he was, I think, born originally in New Jersey, but then went to school in Salisbury, Maryland, of all places. So that's cool. But nonetheless, his opening press conference was clear that this guy, I should say, I mean, you could never do anything in opening press conferences, right? You can't win the Super Bowl there, but it was a good opening press conference. And the more I looked into it, especially with the OC, and he's potentially learned. He's had mistakes made, and now he can potentially learn from them. One of them was not to be so focused in on the plays and whatnot, where, hey, you hire coordinators for a reason, you let them handle that, and you're more of a broad team looking to improve the entire team, not just the defense in his case. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The one thing that I absolutely love about him, and I mentioned it already, but I'm just going to touch on it now with his coordinators, and I'll make videos about those too, but Joe Witt and Cliff Kingsbury. Joe Witt's a guy that he's been working with now for several years, and Joe Witt has interviewed for defensive coordinator positions on other times and other years. He hasn't gotten it yet, and he was actually asked, well, I'll make that later, but he's a guy that was with him last year in Dallas. He's a secondaries coach. That secondary's obviously been insane when it comes to interceptions. They had Trayvon Diggs leading the league in interceptions. Then you had Deron Bland last year, most pick sixes in history in a single season. Obviously, that secondary is humming. He's got a ton of experience, so I like that. But Cliff Kingsbury is a hire. And something I realized in that hire, and going back with Kyle Shanahan and going back with Steve Sarkisian and now here, is a difference in Ron Rivera, where Ron Rivera would hire basically like his buddies, right? Eric Bieniemy was somebody that he knew with Andy Reid. Scott Turner obviously had a relationship with Norv Turner, so he wanted to elevate his son. I mean, obviously he thinks he has some talent, right? Both of them, but he more hired guys that he knew and he liked and things like that, where it's almost the exact opposite, right? Not that he dislikes Cliff Kingsbury, not that he dislikes Shanahan, blah, 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 but what he is interested in is when he was a defensive-minded coach or defensive coordinator, who did he hate to game plan against? Who did he find the most issues in going after and saying, hey, this offense is a terrible defend. It makes me really think and try to be the best that I can be. That's who he wants to go get as an OC, which is why he had top 10 offenses in Atlanta. Of course, Matt Ryan helps, Julio Jones, and a couple other weapons, Freeman or whatever. But that is also now with Cliff Kingsbury. And Cliff Kingsbury obviously has had really good offenses over there when he was in Arizona. He had Kyler Murray looking like MVP candidate at the time. Unfortunately, Kyler Murray cannot last an entire season because of his size and stature. He always gets hurt by the end of the season, and once Call of Duty comes out, blah, 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 whatever. But as far as when they were on, I mean, they had a 9-0 start, I believe, at 1 year. The guy knows offense, and he can scheme up an offense for you. And I know Roger, I'm sure, is hating a lot of gun is going to come out of this. I'm excited about Dan Quinn. What will it turn into? I don't know, but what I can tell early and often is that this Josh Harris group, this ownership group, thinks differently than our previous. Things are going to be different. Will things be good? I don't know, but they're different, and I like it. So, hey, let me know what you guys think about Dan Quinn in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time. And until next time, see ya!